Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Career Choice Series webinar on health law. The Career Choice Series is designed to help you choose your career path. Whether you're a law student, young lawyer, or transitioning attorney, find out what it's like to work in various practice areas and the best way to position yourself to get there. The Career Choice Series is brought to you today by ABA Legal Career Central, Law Student Division, Young Lawyers Division, and the Health Law section. The ABA Health Law section is the voice of the National Health Law Bar within the ABA. Section members represent clients in all segments of the healthcare industry, including physicians, hospitals, and other institutional providers, teaching and research organizations, managed care organizations, and other third-party payers, pharmaceutical companies, and device manufacturers. In addition, our members work in governmental healthcare programs, federal and state regulatory bodies, and the academic community. The Young Lawyers Division is here to help new lawyers navigate the early years of their career and law students prepare for life after law school. The Law Student Division offers premium benefits, which includes a savings of $250 on Barbary Bar Review, $25 off West Academic Case Books, and a legal ethics bundle that includes a free Model Rules of Professional Conduct ebook. Upgrade to premium for $25. Sign up today at abaforlawstudents.com/go-premium. ABA Legal Career Central is a career center that offers both career development resources and a job board for law students, lawyers, and other legal professionals across all disciplines and career stages. I am Emily Roshek, Director of ABA Legal Career Central, and I'll be serving as your moderator today. It is my pleasure to introduce our speakers today. We have with us Jessica Parker-Battle. She is a Director of Compliance for Biogen, which is a multinational biotechnology company based in Cambridge, Massachusetts. It specializes in the discovery, development, and delivery of therapies for the treatment of neurodegenerative and autoimmune diseases to patients worldwide. Previously, she practiced in health law at Greenberg Traurig and was an Assistant Attorney General for the state of Texas in the Civil Medicaid Fraud Division. She is currently involved in the ABA Health Law section as a Vice Chair of the Life Sciences Committee and Distance Learning Committee. Ramana Ramaswaran is an associate at Arent Fox LLP's DC office in its healthcare regulatory department. He was previously at Fox Rothschild. Before starting law school, he was a medical student. He also worked in the Philadelphia region at Temple University Health System Incorporated. He is currently the ABA Health Law section's young lawyer liaison to its governing council. Welcome, Jessica and Ramana. Thank you so much for being here today. We're excited to hear about your experiences practicing in health law. So to begin, I would like to first have you both provide an overview of what it is that you do in health law. And Jessica, I would like to start with you.
Great, thanks, Emily. So, as many of you may know, health law is such a broad, diverse, and truly dynamic area of the law. So I'm not going to be able to cover it all, but from my perspective, when I've had many iterations of my career, but primarily it falls into litigation or trial work, or like I like to say, what you see on the TV a lawyer does. That's kind of more my wheelhouse, as well as doing investigations, government investigations. And now in my current role at Biogen, I am in a compliance type role in our legal department, which is somewhat of a quasi-legal role, but it also deals with issues around False Claims Act and the anti-kickback law. So it's kind of multifaceted. We deal with policies of the company as well as the government, the Department of Justice, as well as the FDA and other pharmaceutical regulatory bodies.
Great, thank you. Ramana?
Sure. So I do the exact opposite of Jessica. I'm actually more in the transactional and regulatory, not the exact opposite, but I don't do what you see on TV. What I actually am, I actually like to say is health law, whenever you're dealing with it, it's got two things. One, anything that makes business sense in any other business is probably illegal in health law, and you just have to be careful of it. And two, it's a microcosm for almost all other types of law. My practice deals with a lot of compliance with healthcare regulatory items like Stark and anti-kickback, just doing the analysis. But I also do a lot of healthcare IT, real estate, employment contracts, privacy, corporate. It just goes on and on as to what you can do because it truly is a microcosm for everything else. I also deal with billing and reimbursement questions, advertising, and a lot more. So health law really is all-encompassing.
Wow, that is really quite diverse. Ramana, why don't you start with your career path and how you chose to focus on what you started to work on in health law?
Sure. As Emily mentioned, I did go to medical school before I decided to switch over to the dark side and join law school. It's wonderful. And so when I decided to join law school, I thought I would become a med mal lawyer because I wanted to protect doctors. What I ended up loving is transactions. So I was in a transactional competition, realized I loved it, and I went forward with that. My path was to actually go to 2 internships. One was at a EMS law firm, emergency medical services law firm, and then the other was in-house at a company that does pharmaceutical and chemicals for pharmaceutical companies. I then wanted to find my first job, which is probably the most important part of trying to get into the health law field, and I started actually just making phone calls like the career services offices tell you to do. I called up the chief counsel and asked her if I could have a few minutes about health law, just learning more about it. She ended up bringing me as a fellow, a legal fellow, which meant I got to learn all about healthcare law from a health system standpoint. I then took that experience and parlayed it into getting into Fox Rothschild in the Philadelphia region. And from there, about 3 weeks ago, I came and joined Errant Fox. Every step of the way, it's really been about gaining as much experience as you possibly can. And it can be in a diverse area because health law is a diverse area.
Wow, that's good for you for making those cold calls, and it obviously worked out for you. Jessica, can you share with us your career path?
I will. So I was interested in health law. I really began to be interested. I'll start at an early age, more in health. I liked Ben Carson's Gifted Hands, and I was like, oh, I'm going to be a doctor. Then senior year of high school, I volunteered at a hospital and realized, hey, wait, I don't like blood. So even though my college application said pre-med, I realized quickly that was not going to be the path I was going to go to, and I started to actually try mock trial. And from there, I kind of everything built upon that. I still was interested in healthcare, but I was like, you know what? I really like giving people advice. I like the law as I thought I knew it then. And so, you know, that kind of continued through my college career, taking those type of courses. And then, you know, obviously going into law school. So after law school, and I didn't do any type of health law classes in law school, actually. After graduating, though, I had an opportunity to serve at the Texas Attorney General's office in the Civil Medicaid Fraud Division. I was like, what does this mean? I'm not sure about it, but let me find out. And really what it was about was these you know, basically we were prosecuting against pharmaceutical companies. And so I did that, and it was very interesting. I felt like I was, you know, helping people, fighting for, you know, the government, and I would say the people. And then from there, I said, well, you know what, my husband needed to come to Boston for graduate school. So I was going to see, do I stay at that position in the government or do I try something different? So I had an opportunity to go to Greenberg Traurig, where I continued to do health law. And what was funny is my friends at the Attorney General's office are like, oh, you're going to the dark side, because now I was representing those pharmaceutical companies, healthcare providers, and doing even products liability work as well. And then about 2 years ago, I decided to go in-house to do legal and compliance work at Biogen, which is basically a neuroscience company, pharmaceutical company, where I'm working closer with the business. So now I keep saying my experience in terms of pharmaceuticals and healthcare, at least on this way, feels like it's come full circle. I've been able to serve in the government as outside counsel and now inside, getting kind of a sense of the business. So it's been fun and dynamic at the same time.
Wow, yes, definitely dynamic. And that actually segues perfectly into what I wanted to talk to you about next is, and this may be difficult to answer, but what is a day in the life, especially given the diverse practice that you have? And Jessica, I'd like to start with you.
So to your point, every day is different. I'm sure you hear that from a lot of lawyers, but truly every day is different. I'm not going to have enough time to go through, how it was in the government or law firm. Happy to talk to anyone about that offline, but currently, especially because I'm in a legal compliance type role, there are a whole lot of meetings, and I never had this many meetings in my other positions, but my whole day is spent, with meetings with various people in the business, and essentially what I'm helping them do is, one, giving them advice and helping them understand what are the risks of your business decisions, what is this risk analysis, how do we weigh this, because a lot of times what I'm considering is not just what's in the law, but what's in a company policy, or even what do we want to do in terms of just our public stance. And so a lot of times it's like we're truly operating in those gray areas. So helping them through those type of things, as well as how do we interact with doctors as a pharmaceutical company, and patients and payers. And so I help those different business units through that. We obviously have to do, from a compliance perspective, what we call monitoring, and a lot of times this is where people are like, oh, here comes my compliance or lawyer, oh gosh, they're watching me do something wrong. But essentially what we're doing is we're saying, hey, are you abiding by the laws we have out there? Are you abiding by those policies as a company? How are you appropriately acting? So we go out there, we go out into the field with the business. If they go into a doctor's office, we may ride with them. If they're doing a program, we may go with them to understand it, as well as we train employees and new hires and draft policies and procedures. So as opposed to before, when I was in litigation drafting motions and doing a lot of LexisNexis or Westlaw research, right now I don't have to do that as heavily.
Great, that's really helpful. Ramana, how about you? What's a day in the life of your practice?
So I can tell you this morning I just bought a ablation equipment for a hospital, and right now I'm doing a complex management services agreement for someone else. It truly is different, and it can be anything and everything, as Jessica was mentioning. A day-to-day basis can be different, but a couple of things end up being exactly the same every day. I get to calls with clients, and I have to provide feedback on contracts or strategy or just a regulatory perspective as to what they're about to do, or at least get the information of what they're about to do and start the research, because the next part of what I do is analyzing the regulations and seeing whatever a system wants to do, a provider wants to do, a pharmaceutical company wants to do, actually fits within the legal parameters of what they can do. So I look at a lot of regulations, I do a lot of analysis related to that. We also do a lot of drafting of deals and active negotiations with vendors. So transactional isn't just about sitting down and writing, it's really about advocating for your client from a negotiating standpoint. There's also business development. That's the word that everyone has to know about if you're going to go to an outside counsel law firm. We do a lot of business development work, so we do a lot of preparing for presentations, pitches, those kind of things. So we have that and office meetings, but more than that, we also have flows that are up and down. So any given moment, you might get a call from a client. And the thing about this kind of work is usually when they're having a problem, it can be a really big problem, either to one patient or for the entire company, because it's a regulatory issue that in some cases you're betting the business on that regulatory issue. So it's a lot of high stakes, but a lot of fun stakes within that realm.
Oh, very interesting. Thank you for sharing that with us. It sounds like you're very passionate about what you do, so that segues nicely into the next question that I have for you. And so I'll start with you, Ramana. What are some things that you really love about your work, and what are some challenges that you face?
Sure, it's actually kind of hard to come up with the challenges, but the love is actually quite easy, as you can tell. One of the things I just absolutely adore about health law is the actual people that do healthcare law work. The bar in general of healthcare lawyers, and no matter where you go, I've just noticed they're just a nice group of people. They're passionate about what they do. What they do is important because they're protecting providers or helping providers with whatever they're doing, and that's great. Another thing that I love, it's always different. As we keep saying, every day is different. Everything can be different. It's almost like being an ER doctor where you just have to know where to go with whatever you got and do something about it. Some of the challenges that I faced, I've got to say, as a young lawyer especially, it's hard when you can't find an answer on whatever you're looking for. There's not always going to be a yes or no answer as to yes, you can do this, or no, you can't. So that can be challenging, especially because you want to find the answer. That's what we're trained to do in law school. But here, there's a lot of gray area. So that can be a little frustrating, but it also can be something that you can use. That's pretty much all I can think of that I hate about it.
I know, hate's a strong word.
Yeah.
Perfect. Well, thank you. Jessica, what about you? Please tell us about what you love about this practice area and some challenges you face.
So I agree with Ramana. I really wanted to emphasize that other attorneys, I agree with that. I think that it's a different type of person maybe, and I found that as well. But I will say really what drives me to be a health law attorney is helping people. I like that this is almost, especially even coming even more in-house, is I have a direct impact on helping people's livelihood, their health, and whether it's through a provider, a pharmaceutical company developing, drugs that would hopefully help someone, as well as, patients, but every person basically hits healthcare in one way or the next, and I just love that about it. I do feel like there's some type of, bigger purpose when I'm doing this versus just thinking in just financial sense only. It's another way to help people, as well as I love from an intellectual standpoint how challenging and fast-paced it is. I love that it's every day it is something different. I'm having to actively use my brain and think about, okay, the government has decided this here. Pharma, which is basically, comprised of a number of pharmaceutical companies. This is what they're doing here. Or even politically, what's happening? How will that affect things? So always having to be updated on what's going on just in society in general, and being able to match kind of what I like to do, which is give back. And this is a way I can do it through my profession as well. Now, when I think about challenges, I think one, not enough hours in the day, and I'm not saying that just to be trite, but I think a lot of times I really take it seriously that if we don't get our job right, particularly in a pharmaceutical sense or even a healthcare company, that it does affect people's sometimes even ability to live. And so, sometimes I feel great pressure to get everything done because you do feel there's that kind of calling or higher calling to help people and making sure that it does not affect, hey, I need my prescription for me, one of our big products are multiple sclerosis. So I need this, to continue on. So that really drives me. But the other thing that's challenging from an internal standpoint is I am obviously, part of our legal and compliance team, which sometimes there's a rub there because we're independent in the company. So sometimes we have to tell people, no, you cannot do this. Or if you think you want to do this, you have to rethink it and reframe it. And sometimes that can be very uncomfortable for people, depending on your personality type, that you're going to have to push back and sometimes say, no, I'm sorry. Look people in the eye and say, you just can't do this. So it can be challenging, especially when you're working at a company with people.
Great. Thank you so much for sharing all that. You definitely, it's definitely a noble cause to want to help people with respect to their health issues. So I'm sure people here would like to know, if I want to get into this area, what are some skills that I need to have to be successful? So Jessica, do you mind starting us off with that? What are some skills that people need to work as a health law attorney?
I will, and I don't know if I would even say it's so unique for health law. I think these can be applicable just to being an attorney as well. But one of the biggest things is being able to problem solve for people. That's really what we do. We are creative thinkers that solve problems, and we're doing it in a way, that where we can communicate, where people can understand it. So I guess I would say one, problem solving, being able to be flexible in any type of fast-paced environment. We can't get so rigid that we're not able to be flexible. And then I guess the other third one, maybe skill or quality, you probably hear from what I'm saying, but your ethics and your reputation are everything. You'd be surprised how small the legal field is, and then going into the healthcare field. And people do they know when there have been bad actors. So your ethics and your reputation can really take you far.
So true. Thank you. Ramana, what about you?
For me, I would say learning how to analyze an issue to the extent that you absolutely can, and doing the research in doing that. Just understanding the issues. The health law is actually relatively new. It's a relatively new field. So even though it's a new field, these laws have existed back in the 90s when we didn't have good internet access to different things. So understanding how to do research and then analyzing whatever you find. Communications is absolutely key. One thing that I notice is we have to be able to communicate in a sophisticated manner using the jargon that's within the health law community. But then you have to be able to take whatever you're talking about and bring it down to an 8th grade level. For example, when we do things like informed consent, you want to make sure that the patients understand whatever they're doing, whatever they're actually getting involved with when they're about to get surgery. So just being able to take something very complex and bringing it down to somewhere where just a lay person can understand is key. The other thing is keeping your cool. I say that in the sense that you might get yelled at from time to time by people that are really in a high-stakes situation because it's about lives. But more than that, it's keeping your cool as things are coming up, as things are happening. Especially when I was in-house, a new fire would come about, and you would have to do something about it. And so, keeping your cool is key.
Yes, great insight. Thank you. Now, Raman, I'm going to start with you. What would people be surprised to know about working as a health law attorney?
I think the thing that most people are surprised about is how much it actually involves. We've just touched on a few areas, for example, FDA law, but it also, FDA law and hospital law and healthcare provider law. But this also deals with insurance, it deals with litigation, as Jessica does. There's just so much to it. And so you basically have to know a little bit about everything in order to be an effective healthcare, at least transactional attorney.
Oh, great. Okay, thank you. Jessica, do you have anything to add?
It's funny, that was like my number one thing. I don't think people realize how many different types of healthcare attorneys there are, so that's definitely surprising. I guess I would add is that, it hits every industry. In other words, as Ramana said, insurance issues, you're going to have to probably deal with that even if you were helping in the fashion industry. So the thing is, I think you're very marketable, and I think some people don't realize that, because of that, there's not as many people as you would think actually doing it. So it makes you marketable as well if you can specialize and find a niche area. But there's so many things to do, and some, again, you'd be surprised, some of these niche areas only have a few people that are, are actually experts in it. So there's great opportunity.
Oh, that's great. Great to know. All right, I have one last question before I want to open up to the audience questions, and we do have a few coming in. How has ABA involvement boosted your career? And Jessica, I'll start with you.
ABA has been very instrumental, I think, particularly when I was at a law firm, because it gave me many opportunities to speak, which sometimes those are hard to do when you're early in your career. But the ABA is always good about that, as well as giving you various positions. If you show that you're interested in being involved, you can have various leadership positions and shape some of these things from the ABA, one of the largest, lawyer groups out there. So it's been great. I think, again, even when you think about, there's other healthcare lawyer groups, but I find with the ABA, it's very much a close-knit group that has allowed me to have a lot of leadership opportunities and speaking opportunities, with which Ramana mentioned can be good for business development and other things like that. So it's been great, and just to have a network of people.
Yes, absolutely. Ramana, what about you?
I've got to say the networking has been instrumental for everything I do. One of the things is I've started when I was a law student and I continued onwards. And the thing about continuing onwards is people in your law firms or in your in-house counsel positions, they will come to you if they need to find someone else. They will come to you if they need to find counsel in another state, because you will know people in all of these different places and different areas, and you'll know people that are not just doing the type of healthcare work that you're doing. So it really opens the doors. But I got to say, the best thing about it has been being able to just pick up the phone and call someone that you know within the community. I've been able to do that many times, and quite frankly, it's probably led to some of the job opportunities, or at least leads the way to some of those job opportunities that I've had in the past.
Fabulous. All right. Now, I'm going to read a few questions from the audience. The first one is, what advice do you have for a young attorney in regards to automation and the replacement of traditional legal roles? How should we plan on a career in health law with that issue in mind? Do you have any thoughts on that? And I'm not really sure who to call on, so I'll just let you talk.
So I think go ahead. So I think from an automation role, the stuff that we do is it's so nuanced. You have to know what you're doing in order to get there. So there may be certain tasks that can be automated, and you should learn how to do the automation process if that actually comes about. But I haven't seen much of it yet. So I think we're relatively safe because of the nuances in healthcare.
Okay. Thanks. Jessica, did you have anything to add?
I agree with that. I mean, I think there's certain things you just can't replace from a person, from a live person who's skilled. And I think, finding a way to make yourself marketable and valuable in an organization where a computer or whatever else, predictive coding or whatever it may be, cannot replace you is always valuable. And so anytime you can do that, and our skills are marketable beyond just a traditional legal role. I'm not really truly in a traditional legal role right now. I have, again, like this compliance spin, and obviously, practicing law full time and working for the government, it has informed what I'm doing right now. So if that were to happen, where robots came or whatever else, you would still definitely have marketable skills.
Yeah, I think that's true for every practice area. The next one is, since health law is so broad, were you both trained and mentored in each of your positions? Jessica, since you were just talking, I'll start with you if you have anything to...
It is very broad. I think, like I said, I started in the government, and I knew in law school I was on our review of litigation journal. I always knew I kind of wanted to do more trial work. And again, I look at, kind of what are things you like to do, skill set. I knew I liked to do public speaking. I actually like, for lack of a better word, the challenging or adversarial nature of litigation. I always did that with my friends. I always say, think about things that are true to you, and that kind of informs your career path. But beyond that, I always had, mentors and advisors and partners and other attorneys I could look to that I could say, well, what do you do? Can you help me understand that? And fortunately, I also had the flexibility to try different types of health law when I was at Greenberg Traurig. And so there are multiple people that mentored me, and I was able to observe, hey, is this really the type of health care law I like?
Got it. Ramana, do you have anything to say?
I've got to say it's about the same. The mentoring, you can find people that do the type of work that you're interested in, but because it's broad, and especially when you're starting out, you don't know what you're interested in until you do something. Mm-hmm. So you can seek it out, and you can then partner with someone that is in the role that you really want, and really get to know that. So mentoring is very important, and you can get that experience. Okay.
Thank you. What is your opinion on the future of healthcare law with the possible changes in current healthcare climate? Do you have thoughts on that?
This is Jessica. That's really a hard question to answer, and frankly, I wish I knew, because I would, be rich right now. I think, I'll just kind of make it personal, especially with the pharmaceutical industry and, all of these questions around drug pricing and things like that. I'm always curious, what does that mean for the new landscape, and, a new focus on value versus other measures, value-based approach. What does that mean? So I don't have any necessarily specific insight, but I do think obviously we all need to be prepared for these changes as they are happening and probably will happen. And again, this is what I was saying, always being prepared for the dynamic nature of healthcare, because a different administration or law or whatever it may be could affect that and change it, and we just have to be flexible and kind of move with that change.
Okay, thank you. So we have a few questions coming in about how to break into being a health law attorney. One is currently practicing in criminal law, has no background in health law, wondering if they should get an LLM. Another is a 3L just graduating. Another is a 1L. Do you have a 1L student regarding classes to take? Do you have some insight for these various levels depending on where they are experience-wise on how to do that?
I think showing an interest that you want to be a healthcare attorney is important. If you've got a criminal background, there is plenty of opportunities to do the criminal side of healthcare work. If you've got a background, if you take classes that are healthcare oriented, you can break into healthcare. If you're in a law school where you don't have healthcare classes, take as close as you can get and try to get the experience elsewhere. As I said, it's so broad. You can parlay any experience into healthcare law. It's just how you put it together on a resume and how you actually portray yourself at the end of the day.
I agree with that completely. I mean, I did not take one health law class in law school, and here I am, almost a decade later in healthcare law. And so I think, again, like Ramana said, it's the interest is really the biggest thing, and you still have opportunities in law school to maybe do an internship or something over the summer, or even, getting academic credit, and people will let you work for free. There's many ways to work for free to get that experience as well. But I do think, a lot of firms, for example, will, you may be in litigation or whatever else, but you may be able to take on some projects, and always raising your hand and letting people know your interest. And everyone now wants to really be involved in healthcare to some extent. So I found it's not hard for you to kind of make a case for that. Just showing the interest and raising your hands and just being thoughtful. And again, ABA, networking with ABA health lawyers as well, can help you make those kind of connections into this area.
Thank you. So I know we're going a few minutes past. I'll just ask one more question. Since both of you transitioned either from an in-house role or to an in-house role, how did you both go about making those transitions, and what do you think is important in initiating such a transition?
It's about taking a targeted approach as to what you want to do. My first job was my first job. It was because I was looking for anything and everything that was out there, and I got super lucky. When you're trying to transition out, you've got to be a little bit more selective as to what you're looking for, what you want, what you're thinking about, and parlay the experience that you already have. Use everything that you've got, and make sure that you fit the mold of whatever you're going towards.
Yeah, and I think, for me, a recruiter contacted me about this opportunity, and I was, wanting to get closer to the business, wanting to let go of billable hours, wanting to make some type of changes, but still making sure it was somewhere where I felt very challenged and things were changing. And, again, every company is different in terms of going in-house, but trying to figure out where is a place I feel strong about the mission, I feel strong about their approach and their culture. And so, when I was doing and, considering coming in-house, those are the kind of things I looked at. And again, you're very up close and personal with the business. And I know, especially when you're coming from a litigation side, it can sometimes be hard going in-house, but there are opportunities if that's what you want to do.
Great. Well, thank you both so very much for your time. I know we've gone a little bit over, so I want to be cognizant of that. I want to thank you both for sharing all your insight into this really exciting and broad, diverse health law practice. I really didn't realize how diverse it was until this webinar, so thank you. And attendees, I want to thank you all for joining us today. I do want to highlight that we have a couple webinars coming up, and the next one in this series is on being a general practice or solo practitioner. And then in the career advice series, which is more on professional development, we have one on keeping up with LinkedIn, and we have one on legal technology and innovation. You're welcome to follow us and chat with us and engage with us on social media, and you can learn more about my board at abalcc.org. Thank you again for joining us. Please complete our short survey before you leave, and have a great day.